Welcome back, Tribe. I have an episode here from FB Capital, as usual. Show them some love if you haven't. Subscribe to his channel. Let's get started. When people scream men need therapy or that men need to work on themselves, it's never because they genuinely care about men's mental health. It's simply because they can't control men.
No longer have I accepted the standard of dating someone who hasn't gone to therapy.
I no longer want to date or trust men that have not been to therapy.
Like a year of court-mandated therapy and like 2 intro to feminism courses.
Day 1 of tapering off of my antidepressants, and I'm so nervous but so excited.
It's like everything got worse.
I have been in therapy since I was 6 years old. My parents said, we want her to be emotionally intelligent, and that I am. I never stopped going to therapy.
I have been on Zoloft or sertraline since I was 16, and I've been on the highest dose, which is 200 milligrams.
So I'm on an SSRI, really high dose, and then Vyvanse also affects your serotonin levels.
I've been taking sertraline for my anxiety for...
This shit's crazy. Can you imagine that? These people are all so heavily medicated. It's no wonder that their brains are completely cooked. They're fried in the head. And then you look at this and go, is this a good wife material for the future I'm trying to build? Do I want her to be the mother of my children? You can't function without powerful pharmacological drugs. That's wild. Dude, the West is cooked. And can we talk about therapy and therapists in general? That entire industry is for-profit bullshit that is pumping these women full of chemicals so that they keep coming back. They feel nothing. They never deal with their real problems. They numb them up. And so you got that lady said 6. I've been going to therapy since I was 6 years old. How insane is this? How is this even allowed? How are these therapists not being sued? This is wild.
For 4 weeks now.
Something's funny, I laugh until I cry. I'm angry, I cry. I feel everything is so intensely. I don't even want to feel anything anymore.
Go to therapy.
My mood has been so low. I've had no motivation.
By the way, there's a study. Go look it up for yourself. If you do intense exercise, like for most of the day, for like 7 days straight, they found that it's more powerful than all these pharmacological drugs that they're taking, that it helps people with depression way more and lasts way longer than any medical intervention that they've ever tried. Intense physical exercise. I swear, look it up. I had to pull this up because I know YouTube is stupid as shit. And if I don't back up the source, something might happen. It says both intense physical exercise and antidepressant medication are effective treatments for depression. And in some cases, exercise can be as effective as medication, especially when regular and sustained. It can trigger the release of endorphins and neurotrophic factors that improve brain function and mood. Wow. Would you look at that? Oh, look what this says. Exercise is 1.5 times more effective than drugs for depression. Let's click on this one. And anxiety. This is from Medical News Today. A large new meta-analysis or meta-studies finds exercise is more beneficial for conditions such as anxiety and depression than standard psychotherapy or medications. You like that, YouTube? Look at all this backed up stuff. The new study found that essentially all forms of exercise produce significant mental health benefits. If therapists would tell you this, you'd stop going. Shorter, high-intensity exercise programs produce the greatest effect. Feeling depressed? Go for a brutal hike, a brutal run, something brutal, high intensity. You're giving it your all. You got nothing left in the gas tank. You're running on fumes, and then you keep going, and then you won't be depressed anymore. Crazy how that works. Exercise provided the greatest mental health benefit to people with depression or who have been diagnosed with HIV and kidney disease, pregnant and postpartum women, and otherwise healthy adults. Wow. An expansive analysis of existing research concludes that physical activity should be viewed as a first-choice treatment for people living with mental health issues. It distills the conclusions of nearly 100 meta-reviews of randomized controlled trials. Dr. Ben Singh says physical activity is 1.5 times more effective at reducing mild to moderate symptoms of depression, psychological stress, and anxiety than medications or cognitive behavior therapy. Would you look at that? There you go.
There needs to be a section on dating apps that says, have you been to therapy?
And I've been struggling with the smallest of tasks, like even having a shower.
And if yes, how long did you stay?
They recently did these studies on these, coping techniques. They taught coping techniques.
Making this video.
And they can't cope.
And it turned out it made kids sadder and more anxious. They measured this. And the reason was regularly ruminating on your bad feelings can make you feel worse.
Wow. Stoicism, it works.
Yes, boys, they love saying it. Men need therapy. But what they really mean is men need to do what I say, or else I have to up my anxiety meds again.
So we decided to up my dosage just by 5 milligrams.
I just increased my medication, moved up to 20 milligrams.
And within an hour of taking it, I was throwing up. I'm going to give it a couple weeks.
You see, victims, bro. They don't think for themselves. They get prescribed medication. They don't even question it. Should I be taking this? Okay, doctor, I will take this without any questions. Should I get jabbed up and boosted? Yes, doctor, I will get jabbed up and boosted. We need to throw all those people who don't get jabbed up and boosted in prison. And by the way, put me on the maximum dosage where I throw up and probably become fried completely with my neurons. Don't even fucking function anymore. Don't fire at all. And I won't question a goddamn thing because I don't have any healthy, working, firing neurons anyway. Fucking hell. These people vote who read an article, the headline, and then agree with it. They don't question any information. If daddy government told you so, it must be true. In lockstep. Fucking shit, bro. The 19th. Wow, that's a crazy one. The 19th, I start to question it. At first, I thought people were crazy saying that shit. We need to fix who's allowed to vote. Citizenship by service only. Really. That's it. Want to know more? That's the only way for going in the future. Not everybody has to have citizen rights. You could be a resident. You can have resident rights, but you can't unless you want to defend the empire. Would you like to know more? It's a fucking meme, but that's where we're going.
Figure it out. Take some Zofran with it.
I started at 25 milligrams, 25, then 50, then 75, then 100, until I got to 200 milligrams.
My God, it is a true epidemic of biblical proportions out there, with millions of young women not only in therapy, but also hooked on a whole host of anxiety meds, ADHD meds, and weight loss meds, which is obviously a perfect cocktail for disaster.
So I'm on an SSRI, really high dose, and then Vyvanse also affects your serotonin levels. So when you combine them, for me, not good.
Yeah, no shit.
So I don't know what we're going to do next. Probably go back to Ritalin.
These women are getting milked harder than a dairy cow, with most therapy sessions easily costing well over $100 or even $200 per session.
And I said, boring. Thanks for that advice. Here's $250.
Wow, $250 a session. Even in Australian fund money, that is still well over $160. Now multiply that with 8 clients a day, 5 days a week, and you start to see how insane the amount of money is that these therapists make. Please drop a like if you think that most therapists are just milking clients, and comment down below what you think.
Because this is what it's all about, right? Motherfucking cock-sucking money. Yeah.
So it's no wonder that TikTok is absolutely flooded with people telling you you need therapy. And what a coincidence. They all just happen to sell that.
I'm a therapist who just got out of therapy, and as a therapist in therapy.
Is it normal to go to therapy every week? I'm a therapist, so let me tell you, it is totally normal to go to therapy every single week.
But before we dive into this messed up and corrupt world that is therapy and anxiety medication, I must make a few things very clear. First up, 99% of therapists are absolute clowns who don't know what the hell they're doing, and you should never let them work on your mental health.
If you're feeling anxious too, you can pop along with me. Even though I am feeling anxious and frustrated at myself for feeling this way, you don't get this. This is not the ball for like you. I know that anxiety is not machine that he's on.
Yep, she's an actual therapist with paying clients, but we'll get to her in a sec. Because second, therapy is mostly a pseudoscience that only in very specific situations and for very specific cases can actually help to treat people, but only when it's done by solid experts with decades of experience.
I just went to my first therapy session because the demons finally won. I found this girl, we jumped on a call, and I really liked her. Like, we got along immediately. And then it wasn't until the next day that I looked her up. I did some research, and I found out that she was 23.
Classic. And 3, most importantly, in order to be an effective therapist and provide real benefits to clients, you actually need to be an exceptional human being with an extraordinary mind, which is almost never the case for 99% of therapists out there.
I am feeling a little more anxious this evening, so I'm just noticing that. I had a few minutes between clients, and I accidentally really triggered my nervous system and my wounding because I found myself down a rabbit hole of looking at someone's Instagram.
These people are sick. They're sick and they're making other people believe they're sick and they're benefiting off of that by making money. What a sick fucking world with.
That I shouldn't have.
This woman here is barely functioning as an adult, but somehow she's going to help you deal with your mental problems.
Even though I haven't found my person yet, I know that I am worthy and I am wonderful, but I don't have to be mean to myself.
Right. It is clear that we are living in a world where anxiety is the new in vogue word, and everyone tries to convince you that it's somehow the worst thing ever to have, when in reality, you need anxiety. It actually keeps you safe, since anxiety keeps you engaged in thinking about potential dangers. However, just like breathing in oxygen and expelling carbon dioxide, it is perfectly normal, but hyperventilating is a complete disaster.
But if you're the kind of person that gets really overwhelmed by a text message,
So I'm getting my hair done. I have foils in my hair. I literally start to get anxiety.
Numbing down your anxiety with these meds or constantly reflecting over and over again about how anxious you are and how every little thing gives you more anxiety.
Do you see why companies sell to women? Why it's so profitable to sell them bullshit? Look how easy it is for them to be convinced of crazy shit that will ruin their lives. And they will gladly clap along and agree with every single thing. Look, that's crazy. Men don't accept this kind of shit. You can't sell men on this bullshit. That's what a world. What a fucking...
Anxiety is only going to make your life miserable. With all of these meds and all of this therapy available, when have you ever heard a therapist tell you that they've cured all these patients? If you ask a real doctor, they can give you precise stats on how many patients they've had and how many were cured, even telling you how many died and how long they lived before they died. However, therapists can't do this because they have no idea. They almost never actually cure someone.
That it's sometimes polluted by scientific fraud, where data, analyses, conclusions, and even research participants have been created out of thin air. They simply don't exist.
And patients simply stop coming because either it's not working or they run out of money. Not to mention the fact that millions of people end up worse than they were before going to therapy.
You should not be in therapy for an extended period of time. And I'm a therapist that's saying this.
I'm Dr. Joseph Wittering, and I run the world's largest practice dedicated to helping people come off psychiatric medications. Psychiatric medications, these are not a cure. They do not fix any kind of chemical imbalance. This is just marketing slogans, not scientific fact. In fact, the way these drugs work, every single one of them, is by masking the symptoms that the person is experiencing.
And so the women screaming men need therapy don't actually care about men's mental health. They are simply frustrated that the men they are interacting with don't do what they want. We are living in a gynocentric world that views everything that women want to feel and do as perfect, while at the same time they despise how men want to feel and behave and dismiss this as toxic and evil. These people preach about compassion and empathy, but completely fail to understand that men's and women's biochemistry is totally different.
You guys remember that viral video of Tom Cruise explaining this shit and he got shunned for it so bad when he was talking about all these psychological pills, SSRIs, and he was explaining the history of psychotherapy and how against he was. This is when they were calling him a loony. They were saying he was a complete fucking nut job for being in that one church. I forgot what they was even called. Scientology, yes, that's what it was. He was in the Scientology church and they were ripping him for, what the fuck does Tom Cruise know about psychotherapy and SSRIs? You're not a doctor. Guess what the fuck happened years later? He got vindicated completely.
Which means that we want to interact in this world in a different way. We don't want to form friendships the same way women form friendships, and we don't want to interact with each other the same way women do. Many men can easily sit together and stare at a lake for hours and have the best time ever, while most women want to fire off 500 words per second and have a good crying session.
I love crying.
Crying could be a way to experience more joy.
Crying is actually really, really good for you because I cry every single day of my life.
And so most of these clowns on platforms like BetterHelp or TikTok will not actually help you.
So I was a therapist on BetterHelp for...
Imagine taking a woman's opinion seriously on it, like asking her what she wants, what she's looking for in a man, what her dream life is. Imagine being that fucking moron. After seeing videos like this, how easily manipulated half of the population could be, and you're over there on a fucking date really asking them questions about what they want out of life and all that shit. Imagine you're that guy. Wow. If this doesn't put in perspective everything we've been saying for years about how you need to be your own man, have your own purpose, your own mission in life, put yourself first, because that distills down to your relationship. You being happy makes your woman happy, makes your family happy, makes them more stable, makes it function much better. When you put people above you as a man, you falter. Your performance goes down. Your ability to come through for your family, to be dependable, all this shit, you start to get looked at as less than. How could the one that's supposed to be at the top of the pyramid put himself at the base? You get looked down on as a fan. They always told you never put them on a pedestal. Why do you even ask these kind of questions? When you see videos like this and you're looking at your woman or your wife, I want you to remember these kinds of videos when you ask stupid fucking questions like that.
For about 3 months. BetterHelp encourages therapists to have up to 50 clients in a week.
They need to do better. They really need to take care of their staff, take care of their clinicians, right? And not have to see 10 to 12 people in a day. That's crazy pants.
The dirty little secret is, if you don't have a serious mental illness, such as wartime PTSD or being SA'd as a kid, then most therapy is a waste of time and money, and you are simply the perfect client for 99% of these charlatans.
Also, the incentive is for therapists to treat the least sick for the longest period of time. That's the incentive. Because you don't want the schizophrenic patient who really needs you.
Right.
They're really hard to treat, right? You don't want the bipolar patient.
Right.
Some people will refuse to see those patients.
See, they're great at holding your hand and making you feel all warm and fuzzy inside, but in terms of actually solving serious issues, forget about it. And the reason for that is actually really simple. You see, real science is based on two fundamental principles, repeatability and reproducibility. And especially the social, quote-unquote, sciences have struggled with this for centuries. In fact, it is well known in psychology specifically that 40 to 50% of all studies cannot be replicated, and this number is only increasing.
So for a long time, especially in psychology and in life sciences, people were just like, I would do a study, I would report whatever I want to report in a paper, but in reality, this was just a fluke, and no one's going to replicate it. So people are going to base their work off of my fluke.
270 scientists from the reproducibility project Psychology took on a huge task. Rerun 100 studies that had been published in 3 important psychology journals. And by 2015, they had replicated all 100. And of those 100 replications, only 36% resulted in any significant results.
There you go.
And for that 36% that were replicated, the effect sizes were on average half of what was originally reported.
So not only can results of psychology studies often not be verified, but there's no real motivation to do so.
So about 15% can be reproduced inaccurately. Unbelievable. The one that could be probably reproduced inaccurately was literally one of the ones that we read earlier. That exercise was as effective, if not more, or 1.5 times as effective. Can you reproduce that in people? Obviously, make them exercise intensely, and you get similar results. That's unreal, dude. They built an entire industry of sucking money from mentally ill people. They're not even mentally ill. They're just stupid. It's like taking advantage of some low IQ ape. That's what they're doing. The apes are being taken advantage of. The low IQ morons that can't think for themselves and question anything, or I don't know, are they too afraid to say something, or are they trying to be trendy and hip and say that they also have this issue and it's like so cool. Wow, I have anxiety. Give me SSRIs. I'm on Zoloft. And they compare their victimhood. It's like the victim mentality bonus points that they're giving themselves. Who could be a bigger victim? Who knows what it is? The problem is it's mostly women. So then we have to look at this at a lens of the gender. What's going on with that gender that makes them so susceptible to this kind of bullshit? That's a topic probably society doesn't want to touch, and there's limits to it. Oh, okay. Interesting nonetheless. Shocking just how deep the corruption goes and how widespread it is. Unbelievable, honestly. Shouldn't be surprised. Nothing in the world today is actually surprising, to be honest. I don't know why I am, but still, the time it gets me. As usual, boys, take care of yourselves. We'll see you on the next one.